Appropriate time of day greetings to everyone. Welcome to the Storytellers Club. Each week we chat with the creators behind some of your favorite or soon-to-be favorite stories. As always, I am your host, Chris Hicks. This week we are speaking with Natalia Theodoridou. Natalia is award-winning author of short fiction, novels, and something I learned a lot more about after speaking with them, interactive novels. The writing credits have spanned over the past decade in a literal who's who of genre fiction publications like Clarkesworld, Apex Magazine, Uncanny Magazine, The Deadlands, Pseudopod, basically all the places genre authors want to see their work. The story we're discussing today, The Jukebox Man, was posted to Apex Magazine's website this past June, and after reading it, it sent me down a rabbit hole of their work, which I am still enjoying. If you would like to read the story before we dive into it, pause here and head over to Apex, give it a read now. Welcome back. All right, sit tight. Have a listen. I like having the video. I like having the video, so it's a little easier to talk to someone when you can see them. So it's less like a phone call. So
yeah, same. I can't deal with just audio without an image. I don't know why. It's so
yeah, I
strange.
know. Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe the pandemic kind of conditioned us to a Zoom type society for, this is the only way we communicated for like a year and a half over here. So maybe that's why.
Oh,
And
I was like that way before that.
yeah, and I did use Skype a lot. I didn't really use the video version of it, but the audio version was huge in the office. And then when, the time came for it to shine, Zoom and Microsoft Teams kind of kicked it to the curb. So
Mm.
just getting started here. Very impressive list of publications that you've been in. The one that we're going to talk about today was in Apex Magazine. You've been in Clarkesworld. You've been on Pseudopod. You've been in just kind of the murderer's row of publications that, writers starting out just kind of like, man, if I get into that publication, I can't, that's what I'm just waiting. Nightmare Magazine, all these ones that, aspiring authors just, look towards to get into. So first off, congratulations on that. Very impressive, very
Oh, thank you.
lengthy. I mean, you've been publishing since, going back to like 2015, 2014, 2013. There we
Yeah,
go,
it's been a
scrolling down.
decade.
How did you get started writing short stories or just writing in general?
Well, like a lot of people, I started writing when I was a child.
Mhm.
And because I grew up in Greece, I started writing in Greek. It was Greek poetry, in fact, and
Oh,
then short stories, really in Greek, really, really weird stories. Like I was thinking about one of the first ones I wrote was about this woman who started picking at a scab on her arm, and then as she was digging into her arm, she started pulling out toys from her childhood, and so really surreal, weird things.
that
I
is
did that for a
awesome. I
while.
love that. I would love to read that if there's an English translation of it.
There isn't, and honestly, it's not very good. So you should be thankful it's not,
Yeah.
it hasn't been unleashed onto the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. As
Um,
writers, we like to hide all the studio tapes, the early stuff, the early year stuff. No, I get what you're saying.
right, yes, yeah. And then I started, my background is in theater, and I did a lot of postgraduate studies on theater in the UK and then in the US. And while I was doing my fieldwork in Indonesia, my working language by then had been English for a few years. So I started writing short stories in English. And then I got hooked on that because I realized you can actually publish those and
Yeah.
get paid, which was a very good surprise. It had never crossed my mind that someone could make money publishing things while I was writing in Greek, because you can't make money publishing in
Oh,
Greek.
wow.
I mean, that's a generalization and probably not entirely true, but it's true for most of us anyway.
Yeah. I guess the English market
Um,
is much more expansive than the Greek market for short stories. So,
yeah, yeah, and there is a lot more readership, that's for
yeah.
sure.
All right. So,
So yeah, it's been mostly short stories for the past decade until a couple of years back when I wrote a novel. and I started changing my mind a little bit about how strictly a short story writer I am.
Hmm.
And also, I've been working on interactive fiction, games, text-based games, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I saw
Um,
that on your website. There was a couple of yeah, yeah, web or not website, but games along those lines. Those look really
mhm.
look interesting to get into. So the transition from short story writing to novel writing, was that difficult, or you know, trying to figure out, all right, there's more story here than I thought there would be, or just do you start out writing a novel, or do you start out writing a story and like, oh, let's see where it goes?
Well, for a long time, I always thought I would like to write a novel one day,
Hmm.
but for a long time, whenever I started writing something, and I thought, well, this might be a long short story, I ended up with flash fiction.
Mm.
When I aimed for a novella, I ended up with a short story. So it was that kind of movement for
Yeah.
me. But eventually, gradually, I started writing longer and longer until at one point I realized that there was a lot more story than a short story could accommodate. And I kind of figured out the difference in function, I guess, between novels and short stories, like the difference between a film and a TV series.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good
is
comparison.
how I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed writing a novel actually. It had a lot more space internally to move things around.
Hmm.
When I write short stories, I can't really do much rewriting or editing because it feels like if I move one thing, the whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
So novels feel much more expansive and I can experiment a lot more.
Oh, nice. So, how many novels have you written so far? I say so far,
Um,
expecting more, so no pressure,
it's
but
a very diplomatically put question. Thank you. Just the one. Just the
just the
one.
one.
Unless you count the interactive fiction, which, well, they are interactive novels, but they
Right.
are 300,000 words each.
Oh,
But the
wow.
what I write is 300,000 words long, but what the player goes through each time is about novella length. So it's somewhere between a novella and a series.
So like those kind of like what I grew up with, the old choose your own adventure books, but in
Yeah,
video game format. So yeah,
yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of writing, and definitely a lot of fun to trace, I guess, to because yeah, and I guess in writing a novel or writing a short story, there are often times you come to decision points like, well, let me take it this direction, or let me take it that
Mm,
direction. Now, and when you do that type of writing, you actually get to carry those threads to their terminus, whether they be good or bad. So yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Right. All the directions and
yeah.
all the choices. Yeah.
So is there only one good ending, or are there multiple good endings in your games? Or
Uh, there are no good endings. The way the way I
perfect.
think about it is you will never, well, almost never get an ending that is all good or all
Right.
bad. It's always making hard choices between lots of things that you want to do, and
Mhm.
you can succeed at some of them and fail at some others. So it's always a mixed bag, I guess. It's what I'm going for anyway, something usually bittersweet and very
No,
dark.
that's no, that's great. Yeah, I play some video games occasionally, and I spent months on Baldur's Gate 3, and it's very similar in that
Mm,
aspect where you have to make decisions, and you don't always know which whether it's a good decision or bad until you've invested 100 hours of playing time into it and realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that, 7 weeks ago. But yeah, no, it's fun, and that's one of the fun things about even like tabletop games, like not knowing, you can't just auto save and try different things every time. So yeah.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
sorry. So who would you say are your biggest literary influences?
That's a really hard question.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I grew up with a lot of different influences, like Greek mythology was a really big one. That's what my dad used to read to me when I
Oh,
was a child, like, and not even children's versions of Greek mythology, like the proper Athenian Academy
yeah.
referenced kind of long academic versions. Lots of Greek poetry as well, and other poetry. Lots of dark, weird folk tales that I can't find anywhere these days, and I'm wondering if I made them up. Um, I did read Stephen King and Clive Barker way too young when I shouldn't have had access to those, like
Yeah.
honestly. But more recently, I would say Shirley Jackson, Jeff Vandermeer, Angela Carter, um, Carmen Maria Machado, Helen Oyeyemi, Hilary Mantel, lots of people, Anne Carson. Yeah, I
Hmm.
really, well, like most people enjoy reading, most writers, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
always good to have a diverse readers list. For some reason, I slept on Shirley Jackson for way too long. Obviously, I read,
Mm,
The Lottery and,
mm.
Hill House, but like I just had kind of a revival of reading her work, and I just finished We Have Always Lived in the Castle, and I
Oh yeah,
literally read
yeah,
that in one day. It was just an amazing
yes.
story. I'm like, why haven't I read this before? So, yeah, so
Yeah, I was
definitely,
exactly the same actually. Yeah, a couple of years back I read it and I was like, where was I? How have
exactly.
I been missing out on this? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's
so
just
good.
like I said, it's just very, I mean, it's a very tight story. It's only like 150 pages, something like that. And
Mm,
but there's just, I don't know, there's something about it. Just feels like there's more story there, even though it's,
mm.
a small story. But yeah. So with your body of work, and the stories you write, do you have a typical writing process that you like to do to get in the mindset to write? Are you a routine driven writer? Do you outline? Are you more of a, start with an idea and just kind of shape up, see where it goes, or how's that work?
In terms of routines, because I've had to move around a lot, I have had to learn to adapt to wherever I am. So I don't need a lot of things to start writing
Hmm.
in an everyday kind of sense. Like I only need my laptop, ideally a window and coffee. But other than that, I'm very flexible. I can write anywhere, anytime, on anything, even pen and paper, like an animal. It's I can do that as well.
Yes, our primitive
No
roots of
offense to
pen and
animals.
paper. Yeah.
Yes. But in terms of outlining or pantsing, I for short stories, what I need is the opening, an idea of the voice. I need to have the voice in order
Hmm.
to get going. And I need to know the ending, sometimes even have the last line. So I know where I'm going. But between those 2 points, I don't really know that much. I do a lot of pre-writing in my head. So
Hmm.
I might be thinking about an idea for years before I start writing. But when I do start, it just comes out pretty fully formed most of the
Hmm.
time. So I don't do a lot of revision for short stories.
Oh, nice.
Um, for longer things, I do need a lot more tent poles between the
Hmm.
beginning and the end. But again, the most important thing for me is knowing the voice. If the voice doesn't work, the story doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. Now, a lot of your stories are very, you write in, kind of sci-fi, horror, kind of dark fiction landscape. And I don't ha I haven't finished it. I actually just started reading this before we got on the call here, but I was on Clark's World and I was reading this. This is back from July of 2015, your story, Android Horrors Can't Cry. And that is first
Oh yeah.
amazing
Lovely.
title. And
Thanks.
then like just kind of the depth of it as I started, like I said, I can't really speak to the whole story, but just like,
Mm,
just very fun. So I guess the question I
thank
normally
you.
ask writers is, where they get their inspiration from, if it comes from real life or imagination or kind of a mix of both. So I imagine there is definitely some imagination, working in this space, but are there real world like experiences sometimes woven into those narratives on your end or?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. It's definitely a mix of both. I get inspiration from lots of different places and from anywhere really. I sometimes it's dreams, it can be prompts, real life experiences. I have lived in lots of different countries, so immigration is often finds its way into my stories. Sometimes it's misreading things like news items that I just glance at and interpret completely incorrectly, and that gives rise to an idea. I'm one of those people who have lots and lots of ideas, more than I could possibly write in a lifetime. And sometimes what I do is I take different ideas and smash them together, and
Hmm.
that creates a new story. I think the one you mentioned, Android Horse, is one of those. I had lots of. I wanted to combine the idea of Android identity, or I guess consciousness, with student uprisings in Greece
Oh,
from the 70s. And I had this fascination with nature and how it's formed and what function it plays in nature. So that's how you end up with that story.
yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, definitely pulling yeah, pieces together and kind of making something new. That's the magic of the creation process. It's very, I don't know, it's just when it works, it's amazing. Definitely.
Mm,
And like I said,
mm.
and of the stories I've read of yours so far, it definitely works. And so yeah, so of your experiences so far, of your writing career so far, has there been, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it?
Um, it's definitely the people I have met, and the writers I have made friends with. Some of the most important people in my life right now are writers I met through Scribophile, through Clarion West, through critique groups, and writers forums. Definitely the people and the friendships I've made. I would unpublish everything I've published. If I had to choose between my friends and any kind of credentials, I would choose the people, hands
That's
down.
great. Yeah, that's the thing about writing. Like, it's such a solitary pursuit, but it really isn't
Mm,
because, like you said,
mm,
you find your community in it. There's, we have shared experiences of, hey, I just got a rejection, or hey, these things going on. So there's kind of a one, in some cases, commiserating when things don't go right, but then also celebrating those successes and being able to, like you said, cheer on your friends when they have those successes, and also having that support when you might be in a slump and not really, things aren't going the way you want it to. It kind of plays opposite to the idea of that comparison is a thief of joy. It's not really comparison. It
yeah,
is,
yeah,
camaraderie, I guess. So yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely, that
yeah.
is great. Yeah,
That's exactly the word, camaraderie. I think it's a
camaraderie.
very good word to describe it. And also, sometimes for some of us, writing is such an exposing, vulnerable thing. So when you share that with people and get honest feedback back, and they also share equally vulnerably, it's really hard not to not create these deep connections. And I think some of my writer friends know me better than anyone else in my life. So it's very precious to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, stories are like, I mean, almost like children to writers, and knowing
Mm,
knowing that, when you hand it to, somebody else to critique or give feedback, knowing that it's going to be handled fairly yet gently, is always
yeah,
a good thing to know
yeah,
because yeah, definitely it is a challenge, and one thing that a lot of, new writers, have difficulty wading into is just putting the work out
mm,
there, and
yeah,
dealing with the, not just the rejection aspect of it, but just the realization that, all right, this isn't working. I need to, put a little more time into it to practice, get things going. So yeah. So
yeah.
now you had
Mm.
mentioned living in a bunch of different places. Where all have you lived around the globe? if you don't mind sharing.
So started in Greece, obviously,
Yeah.
then London, UK, then Chicago in the US, then Bali in Indonesia, for a short time in Heidelberg in Germany, then back to the UK, Portsmouth, and where I am now in Exeter.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's everything. Yeah.
That's that's a good all over the globe there. Yeah. Any of those
Hmm.
places like I don't want to say which one is your favorite, but like do you have any like memories from like living in Chicago that just kind of like sticks out over, just kind of what you took away from Chicago, I guess?
I really loved Chicago. I was at the University of Chicago, and I was studying religion at the time, but the
Oh,
way the course was structured, I could take classes anywhere in the university. So I got visual cultures, documentary classes. It was really amazing, really stimulating. And I also met a bunch of nerds that I love to bits, and we spent our afternoons studying at the hookah bar in the neighborhood. So that was great. But
nice.
I really loved the cold. It was so ridiculously cold. I had never lived in anywhere that was as cold as that, and I absolutely loved it. At one point, that will mean nothing to you because it was minus 28 degrees Celsius.
Wow. Oh,
And
wow. That is cold.
it was really, really cold. I could feel my breath freezing inside my lungs, and I loved
Yeah.
it. I don't know why. I just really, really, really loved it.
It's kind of one of those things like, having new experiences and being open to new experiences, I guess, even ones that, could, freeze the blood vessels in
Mm,
your lungs if you breathe too deeply.
yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, who had the best food? Where would you say the best food was of all those places?
Hmm.
Off on a tangent, I
Indonesia.
know. Oh, really?
Indonesia for sure. Yeah, I really like the food there. Yeah, really
What's the
good.
food like there? I have not heard anything about Indonesian food, actually.
Extremely spicy. So spicy you can't really feel your lips after a while, but I got hooked on it, and then I couldn't enjoy anything unless it was really spicy.
Nice.
Um yeah, really aromatic, really good. Lots of options for vegetarians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Nice. Yeah, I did not know that. Yeah, I'll have to check out some Indonesian cuisine if I can find some. Yeah, I made this is not Indonesian food, but I made the mistake at a Thai place. I got some pad Thai somewhere, and the woman who ran the place, she was this tiny old Thai lady, and very grandmotherly, and she asked me before as I ordered, she's like, "Do you want Thai hot or American hot?" And I was like, I
It's a trick
almost
question.
I should not have taken it as a slight, but for some reason I did. So I was like, I'll try the Thai hot. And there was just kind of smirk on
Oh
her face,
no.
like, okay. And then she came back with it, and oh my God, it was delicious, first off. But again, it was like she was just slinging Diet Cokes at me every 30 seconds because I was so hot. So yeah, I
Yeah, I
imagine.
can
But yeah,
imagine.
again, yeah, once you get used to it, once you acclimate to the temperature of the food, it is amazing. So yeah.
Hmm.
On to the Jukebox Man. So this was published
Hmm.
in where was that? That was Apex magazine
Yep.
not too long ago, like last month or this was it this month? When was it? June. It was
It
in
was
June.
in
Yeah.
June, I think.
What
Yeah,
month
but
is
what
this?
is
This is
time?
yeah, what is time? It's yeah. So
A flat
so
circle, as we all know.
time is a flat circle. Very true. Yeah. So yeah, so you know, I really loved this story. And like I said, reading this story is like, all right, I need to talk to the person who wrote this because it's just
Oh.
very inventive, very creative. And again, like it's 2,200 words, but like it feels like there's so much more there to it. And it was, just a lot of fun to read, a lot of context that's filled into that. And one of the first things I love the way it starts because you hear as a writer, always break into a story late versus early. And the first line is, in the end, she goes to the bar on her own. And it's just like, okay, as a reader, I know, and a person who has, tends to overthink things. Like I can picture all of that, just idea and of like contemplation, yes, no, all the reasons why not, all the reasons I should, and then just like she just goes to a bar on her own. And it's very like I said, loved the way it opened, and just as it kept going, I really enjoyed it. As you know,
Oh, thank you.
knowing how like, you know, you know, being a, I've been that person, walking into a place and just kind of immediately feeling, wow, this isn't my jam. I don't feel like I belong, but I was like, no, I'm going to give it a chance. But then you don't really give it a chance. And then as she's there, she sees the
Mm.
jukebox band, which again, yeah, very, very cool. So with this story, like what was the inspiration? What was he for this behind this idea?
Uh, I joke when I say that, but it's actually true. I always say it's based on true events. It's a true story. And it is actually true. I do have someone in mind who is the jukebox man. He is someone who can hear music constantly internally. So whenever I
Hmm.
ask him, so what's playing now? He always has an answer. There's always a song playing in his brain. So that's the inspiration behind it.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very
Yeah,
personal
cool.
story actually.
Oh, really? Wow. Um, so how have you had like reception of the story? Have you had able to get any readers' reactions to it, or since it's been out there, it's been about a month or so, or
It's a weird thing with short fiction. To me, sometimes it feels like, throwing things into the void, and you never know if anything's coming back.
right?
But I did have when something does come back, it feels really really amazing. And well, I had your reaction, which was good. I
Yeah.
did have someone ask me to put together a playlist for the story because they said they enjoyed trying to guess what song I was referencing throughout, and I thought that was a really neat idea. I
Oh,
might try to do that. Yeah, that sounds
no,
really
that'd be
cool.
really cool. Yeah, like just
Yeah, I'll probably
a
do that when I
companion
have time.
podcast. Listen to this while
Mm,
you're reading. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, that's really cool. Obviously there's some themes going on in the story. Some that I picked up on. Definitely. There's some like in the beginning. There's initially kind of a disconnection, and then there's a connection that she makes with the jukebox man that really kind of revitalizes the main character a little bit, and then she kind of gets in. There's a lot of talk of, or just my perception of it, routine and change, of like
Mhm.
she was kind of stuck in a rut, and then she found the jukebox man who kind of acts as a catalyst to get her out of that rut, but then that itself sort of turns into a rut again, which kind of goes on to
Mm,
kind of, if one of the takeaways I got from the story was um, not all relationships are meant to last. Sometimes you
mm,
make these connections and you take from it things to improve yourself. And obviously, the jukebox man himself, he ends up in a happier place, at the cafe at the end. Spoilers for everybody who
yeah.
hasn't read. Go read the story before you listen to this. Should put that at the beginning. But yeah, so like, it goes like, just because, it's kind of the saying, just because something ends, it doesn't mean that it wasn't meaningful and that something wasn't you know, gotten out of the story. We grow from those relationships, and things like
Mhm.
that. So was that kind of one of the things you were hoping to get out of with the message of the story, or any other themes that I might have missed as I was reading?
Yeah, no. I think you're spot on. That's exactly my thinking behind the story. That we have different needs and different wants, and
Hmm.
sometimes those needs align with the needs of other people, and we can walk alongside each other for a while and then diverge again, and that's all right.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like we are trying to make stories too neatly happy ended or into tragedies when most of our lives takes place somewhere in between those two extremes, like what we were talking about with the endings before.
Right.
You fail at some things, you succeed at other things. It's usually a mixed bag. So yeah, that was the kind of thing I had in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean, it definitely wasn't the Hollywood ending. I mean, I felt like both characters got, to a better place or
Hmm.
kind of elevated to a
Yeah.
another level, but they're, obviously if your goal of this, if as a reader going into this story, oh, she's found the love of her life, then you realize, no, that's not really it. She's found somebody who's giving her, a reappreciation,
Hmm.
opportunity to reassess her life. Like there's a line in there where she talks about, what a pair they are. He's the jukebox man and she's the metronome woman. And
Yeah.
kind of what, with the trappings of routine, which was she was in before, and then she kind of breaks out of, and then she kind of gets into a more comfortable routine. It kind of becomes, the
Hmm.
comfort yet paralyzing aspects of those routines that can happen if you stay in one place, which is,
Yeah.
what a lot of us sometimes do. Get stuck at a job that you don't enjoy, but you stay because of, the benefits or the pay. And, we all find ourselves looking for a jukebox man, I guess, when those things happen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So what do you have in a pipeline? Anything you have coming out that you can share, or anything on the release radar that you'd like to plug for the listeners coming out soon?
Right. I just had a game released,
Oh,
which is a
nice.
horror game. The Retry, Restore, Replay. Oh my God, I'm messing up the title of my game. With choice of games, and the major thing I have coming out is, I guess, my novel next year. It's
Oh,
called
nice.
Sour Cherry, and it's coming in April 2025.
Nice.
It's
Yeah,
the usual dark thing.
nice. Oh, I will correct you. It was Restore, Reflect, Retry. I'm on your website here
Thank
looking at
you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw that and I was like, oh my God, this is a great idea for a game, because it's one of the tropes in, like, creepypasta and like
Yeah,
online like
yeah.
horror communities, is the
Hmm.
haunted video game, the haunted was it Legend of Zelda Majora Mask game. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
that story, but like
yeah.
there's always these stories, and just video games where you know you think, oh, there might be more here, like, you can, or like people who know how to, you know, to what do they call it? Like, not hack necessarily, but modify games to get into
Mm,
like different
yeah.
levels, or like no clip or clip through the kind of get into the
Yes,
back rooms
exactly.
of the game. So yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna get that. I'm gonna find that and
Oh,
give that a
cool. Let me know
try.
what you
So
think if you do. Yeah,
I
it's
will do.
exactly
Yeah.
what you're describing. There is a lot of that. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
perfect. Nice.
yeah, I got way into that sort of thing last year and I really
Yeah.
wanted to make something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and I just thought it has 90,000 words with hundreds of choices without graphics or sound, but fueled by vast, unstoppable power of your imagination. I always loved, like, I grew up playing those um, text-based games where, you
Hmm.
enter a room, exits are south, east, and
Yeah, yeah.
north. There's a fish on the table, and you just kind of guess through, like, all right, pick up fish. You can't do that. All right, why can't I
Yeah,
pick up the fish?
parsers. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Love
I
that.
always love those types of games. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I am the target market for that type of game. So I'll have to check that
So
out,
cool.
definitely.
Good. I hope you enjoy it.
I will, hopefully. Yes, I will. Like I said, I will check that out. But well, again, thank you for stopping on and chatting
Well,
with me
thank you
today.
so much
Again,
for having me.
I will,
Yeah,
like I
you
said, I've
too.
got your website kind of, saved in here, so I'm definitely gonna check out some of the other stories. Like, I love, like I said, when you can, it's kind of, with short stories, we are kind of in a market where, sometimes the title has to be a little, I don't know, I hate using the term, but kind of clickbaity, because there's so much out
Yeah,
there that you have a,
yeah.
a
Has to grab.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to grab and get somebody to read it. So, like, again, like I said, that's what I said. I was literally just scrolling through the list and I found Android Whores Can't Cry. I was like, all right, I got to read that. So, but yeah, so yeah,
It
so
was all downhill from there.
No, I mean, like I said, I started reading it. It was like, okay, but yeah, that brought me in. And as I was reading, I was like, okay, there's a more depth to this story. There's, like, there's like you said, like the student massacre and kind of the
Mm,
counterculture and like all this other stuff going on, kind of told through this lens of this writer trying, trying to dig this up while, meeting with a friend who has a prostitute android that's, he's using to reenact some really dark things at times. So yeah, it's very cool. Like I said, I will finish reading that here shortly, and definitely we'll plug that in the show notes as well. So once I get those out.
I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Definitely. Again, like I said, thank you so much for visiting with me today, and I look forward to your novel coming out, your video game. That like I said, going to check that out, and what you have coming in the future. It's very exciting, and very much appreciate you talking to me today. So check the show notes for how you can stay up to date on Natalia's work and latest releases, including their debut novel Sour Cherry, which arrives in April of 2025 and is available for pre-order now. And as always, if there's an author you'd like to hear from, or you're an author who'd like to chat about your work, storyclubpod@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us today at the Storytellers Club. I have been your host, Chris Hicks. Until next time, thanks for listening.